Hello, my name is Patrick McKeown, and I hope to impart over the next few minutes just a little bit of background about myself, why I became involved with this field, and also the inroads that we're making in terms of improving breathing for sports performance, but not even just for sports performance, for helping to get people who mightn't otherwise do physical exercise, getting them off the couch, making their breathing easier so they get less breathless during physical exercise. So for about 20 years, into my early 20s, I had asthma, I had sleep disorder breathing, I would have been highly stressed, and I came across the work. It was a Russian doctor. Basically, I put his work into practice, and then I trained under him, and I've been teaching breathing, or more specifically addressing dysfunctional breathing patterns, since 2002. Now, in the last 4 years, I spent getting the research and uncovering the link between sports performance and breathing. In other words, can we change an athlete's breathing to improve their sports performance? And there's two aspects to this. One is that many athletes breathe dysfunctionally, and what I mean by that is they may have their mouth open during the day, they may sleep with their mouth open, they may breathe from the upper chest, they breathe excessively. In other words, that if we look at the breathing volume of the person, say, that we can see their breathing or we notice it. So in terms of breathing, light breathing is always better. With breathing, less is more. And in terms of fitness, light breathing is a good testament to fitness. But you could have an athlete, and it's very, very common, that their breathing is off during the day, and as a result, when they do physical exercise, they don't quite reach the standard that they're capable of, because their everyday breathing is holding them back. I'm about training everyday breathing. What can it do? Well, there is a way to breathe to literally open up blood vessels, and there's a way to breathe to close blood vessels. And ironically, the instruction to take a deep breath, it's often talked about in Western yoga, in Pilates, etc., where the individual takes this big fresh breath of air into their lungs. That's not the correct thing to do. In order to get more oxygen delivered to the cells, in order to help open up our blood vessels, in order to help open up our airways, we need to be doing the opposite. We need to be slowing down our breath. We need to be calming our breath. We need to be making our breath light. And that's what the oxygen advantage is about. How can you breathe to get better oxygen delivery to the cells? Because oxygen is fuel, and it's through our breathing that we can enhance that. I suppose the best way to think of it is this. When we get stressed, our breathing gets faster, our breathing becomes into our upper chest, we sigh more, becomes more noticeable, and at that point the individual can't think straight. Because the faster and more intense you breathe, it disturbs blood gases, and as a result then there's actually less oxygen reaching the brain. So it's quite normal not to be able to think straight when we're stressed, because of the fact that there's less oxygen reaching the brain. So what do we do then to bring the body into relaxation? Instead of breathing faster, we slow breathing right down. Instead of breathing noticeably, we quieten breathing. Instead of breathing from the upper chest, we breathe using the diaphragm. Instead of sighing, we have very regular breathing. And instead of breathing through the mouth, we breathe through the nose. And even breathing through the nose, that one concept, if you were to take that, because when we look at the functions of the nose, Dr. Morris Cottle, he was an ENT surgeon, and in the 1970s said that the human nose is responsible for 30 functions in the human body. Now, most of us know about functions of the nose, including the filtering. Animal dander, germs, bacteria, pollen, etc. The nose helps to filter that, so we're not taking it into our lungs. But many of us don't know about the fact that when you breathe through your nose, it helps to improve oxygen uptake in the blood. When you breathe through your nose, you have to improve oxygen delivery to the cells. When you breathe through your nose in a calm, gentle, soft manner, it helps to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And also when we breathe through our nose, the resting position of the tongue is in the roof of the mouth, and that influences heart rate variability. So mouth breathers tend to be more stressed, and that's a natural physiological trait. So, because throughout our evolution, whenever we were confronted by a wild charging boar or something, or an elephant, we had to open our mouth, start breathing fast, in order to prepare us for the physical exercise. But now it's so common for people to mouth breathe and children to mouth breathe. And in one example, I know researchers went into a town in Brazil. They randomly selected 370 children from the ages of 3 to 9 years of age, and they found that 55% of them habitually breathed through their mouths. And seldom do we pay attention to this, but yet we can influence our blood circulation and the amount of oxygen delivered through our breathing. And that's what the oxygen advantage is about. So an athlete, as we do physical exercise, we want to get more fuel to the muscles. With more fuel, we can perform more with less. And the second aspect of the oxygen advantage is practicing breath hold exercises that are specifically designed to lower the oxygen saturation in the blood. And what that does is, when the body senses that oxygen saturation is lowered, the spleen, which is our blood bank, releases more red blood cells into circulation. Our kidneys become slightly hypoxic, in other words, oxygen levels are lowering, and as a result then the kidney will synthesize a hormone called EPO, and EPO stimulates the maturation of red blood cells in the bone marrow. We can also, when we drop oxygen saturation with the specific breath hold exercise, we can drive the body into a state of increased lactic acid. And what happens then is that the body will make adaptations to have offset that or neutralize that. Because oftentimes when you speak with an athlete, if for example they're going from aerobic into an anaerobic state, and that's basically working without oxygen, you know, that there's not sufficient oxygen reaching the muscles. So lactate is generated. And as a result of that, it can often cause fatigue and slow the athlete down. So what we can do is, we can give specifically designed exercises to drop oxygen saturation to a level that would be akin to maybe going up 3,000 or 4,000 meters. And the body then makes adaptations to improve both aerobic capacity, anaerobic capacity, psychological preparedness, as well as, of course, what I spoke about earlier was addressing dysfunctional breathing. So what I'd like to do is just to read you a few pages from the book, and hopefully it will give you, you know, some introduction into it. But basically, to do more with less, that's what this is about. We can live without food for weeks and water for days, but air for just a few brief minutes. And while we spend a great deal of time and attention on what we eat and drink, we pay practically no attention to the air that we breathe. Now, you will know that, yes, it's common that we should be eating, common knowledge that we should be eating maybe 3 average meals per day or 5 small meals per day. It's kind of common knowledge that we should be drinking between 4 and 6 glasses of water per day, but how much air should we breathe? And what's more important, food, water or air? Well, air, of course, is going to be more important, because the importance of the substance is determined by how soon the organism perishes when we switch it off. And we can only live without air for a couple of minutes. Whereas we can live without food for days, and we can live without food for weeks, we can live without water for days. So it's common knowledge that our daily consumption of food and water must be of a certain quality and quantity. Too much or too little spells trouble. We also recognise the importance of breathing good quality air, but what about the quantity? How much air should we breathe for optimum health? Wouldn't it be fair to surmise that air, which is even more important than food or water for human survival, must also meet basic requirements? The quantity of the air you breathe has the potential to transform everything you thought you knew about your body, your health and your performance. Whether you're a pre-athlete just trying to get off the couch, or a weekend warrior running an occasional 10k, or a professional athlete in need of a game-changing edge over your competition, and even at an Olympic level, the margin of difference, you know, in terms of success between one athlete and another is generally about 0.5%. We use this to give athletes the edge. Now, in terms of health, we have, of course, with sleep disorder breathing, because an individual who's got dysfunctional breathing during rest, or heavy breathing or over breathing, they're also going to breathe too much during sleep. This increases the risk of snoring. This increases the risk of obstructive sleep apnea. And obstructive sleep apnea is where the upper airways, the airways that are above the thorax, outside the chest, where they collapse and the individual holds their breath during sleep. And continuous cessation of the breath during sleep it continuously disrupts the individual out of a deep sleep, so the person is pretty much exhausted throughout the day. So addressing dysfunctional breathing is very important. And you may wonder what I mean by quantity. After all, air isn't exactly something that you can binge at the kitchen table late at night or take too many swigs of over the weekend. But what if in a certain sense it was? What if healthy breathing habits were just as important as healthy eating habits in fostering maximum fitness, or in fact even more so? In this book you will discover the fundamental relationship between oxygen and the body. Improving fitness depends on enhancing the release of oxygen to your muscles, organs and tissues. Increased oxygenation is not only healthy, it also enables greater exercise intensity with reduced breathlessness. In short, you will be able to discover better health and fitness as well as better performance. If you do compete, you will also enjoy your training and competitions more than ever, because you'll be able to achieve more with less effort. Because what are we doing through the book? We're looking to make your breathing more efficient, because in a survey of athletes that was conducted, we asked the question, what's the one thing that holds you back? Is it your legs? Is it your mind? Is it your breathing? And 66% of people said it was their breathing that held them back. Well, in addition to training the legs, in addition to training the mind, in addition to training the arms, in addition to training on strategy and tactics, we should always also be looking at breathing. And I don't mean by taking the big breaths, because the big deep breath that's often commonly espoused is exactly the wrong thing to do. You know this because if you take big breaths, it's very common for people to feel lightheaded. So what does that say? The harder we breathe, the more our blood vessels constrict. And this points back to the stress states I spoke about earlier. We get stressed, we can't think straight. Well, can you imagine an athlete with pre-game anxiety and their breathing is getting a little bit faster, they can't think straight. And of course, their performance is going to be affected on the field because their head just isn't in it. We want breathing to be efficient. We want maximum oxygen delivery to the brain. We want the athlete to enter the zone, and we can do that through the breath. So we're able to target so many different factors in not only health performance, but also of course in breathing performance and in sports performance. And we've literally put this down to a secret, even though the basic law of how oxygen was released from the red blood cells, even though that law was discovered back in 1904, it's still not common knowledge, because people don't know how to breathe to get more oxygen delivery to the cells, and we can demonstrate that in a few minutes through the breath. And the oxygen advantage is all about showing you how to do it and how to improve your sports performance, how to improve your concentration, productivity, and also how to improve quality of life. I'm not saying it's a cure-all, but breathing is something that's fundamental to every human being, and it's very important that we get it right.